Beautiful. All right. So hello, my dear Agilists and friends, and welcome to our Agile Bratislava Meetup, this time with a guest speaker. My name is Marian Schwarz, and I will be your host today. In Agile Bratislava, our mission is to help Agilists to find friends and build a community of learning. So I hope today will be one of those days, and that you will find some precious informations and connections in the session. Today we are here for a treat, I would say, because today I am personally beyond thrilled to introduce a very special guest, Zsolt Berend. Zsolt, welcome. Who is the co-author of the, in my opinion, groundbreaking book, Sooner, Safer, Happier. And I personally am super excited because the book meant a lot for me when I first came across it. I bought it in all kinds of copies, in hard copy, in Kindle, in audiobook. And at some point of time in my career, it felt like somebody just went in my head, collected all my experiences from past years of failed transformations and managed to put them on a paper. It was like I should have wrote that book. So I'm super happy that Zsolt is here with us to share some of his wisdom, and that we will have also the opportunity to ask him some questions. A little bit about Zsolt. Zsolt is a seasoned business agility practitioner, a coach, and a trainer. His career is dedicated to helping global organizations achieve better value, sooner, safer, and happier, which is one of the trademarks that you will learn from the book, I would say. From a research fellow in astronomy to working in various industry sectors over 2 decades, Zsolt consistently applied agile and lean practices to drive success and innovation. In his talk today, Zsolt will share invaluable patterns and expertise to guide organization towards becoming true learning organizations. He will dive into a concept that he has I would say personally resonates with me. It's called popping the disconnected learning bubbles, and to show us how teams can grow and adapt more cohesively and effectively. I think we are very privileged to learn from Zsolt, whose contribution have significantly impacted the way business perceive and approach agility and transformation. And whether you are a seasoned professional or just starting on this journey, I hope that today's session will be engaging, enlightening, and impactful for all of you. So without further ado, let's all extend a warm welcome to Zsolt. And please enjoy the session, and the floor is yours, Zsolt.
Thank you so much. Really kind words, and really nice to meet you all. And it's honored to be invited here and having this hour with you. So I'm gonna go through a couple of slides, and then I would like to open up for questions so that we can have a discussion together. So can you see my screen? Okay, everybody can see my screen.
Not yet.
Yeah. Thumbs up. I see thumbs up. Yeah.
You need to share it again, I think.
I need to share it again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. So I'm gonna start with a fun fact. Could you please tell me just in the chat, I'll put my chat here so that I can see. So what's the percentage of the unseen matter in the universe, or in other words, it's called the dark matter, just because Marian said that I spent a couple of years in astronomy and astrophysics, so it's just a fun fact. So anybody would have a guess, what's the percentage of unseen matter or dark matter in the universe? It's 99, 99, 90%. I don't know the exact answer, but based on your answers, it's a lot. So I believe it's somewhere around 90% or 85, 90. So you get different numbers, different results. probably 99 is a stretch, I would say, but definitely is a lot. So the question is, if we translate this into an organizational view, what's the percentage of work that we see, and what's the percentage where work is not, we don't see that because it's in a queue, it's in a wait state or something like that. And when you ask organizations around, or in other words, in the industry world, what's your flow efficiency? So can you tell what's the ratio between when work is being worked on or work is not being worked on? Then often the response is we don't know. Often it's not even clear what we mean by flow or flow efficiency or anything around flow. So the visibility of work and the visibility of queues, the visibility of handoffs is a good information which is not really known in organizations. So in terms of one of the anti-pattern is actually the structure itself, where we have a lot of hands-off, we have lots of silos, whether it's within the team as role-based silos, or even bigger ones between teams, silos. And the question is, do we have visibility of that? So the first thing I would suggest that we start looking into the visibility of the end-to-end of the value creation. And usually when it starts with one team, maybe team A, then maybe it continues with another team. So team A gives something to team C in this case. Maybe there is a dependency on another team. That team gives it, hands it off to another team. So there is another team involved in this journey. And then maybe team E creates the production, the release, or gives it into the hands of the customer. So it could be quite complex. So if you look at this, and maybe in the chat you can tell me whether it resonates with you or not, whether in your organizations you're working with, this is something which describes the value creation, or is it less complex? Is it more complex than this? So if you could please add to the chat. So between those, actually, there are the queues, there are the wait times where actually work is waiting to be picked up by another team. And my experience that this visibility would be awesome, but it's just not there. So in terms of unlocking that visibility and creating that visibility is a really great positive step change. So if you look at what's happening, so this is work, and then it's wait, and work, and it's wait. So there is an end-to-end time to creating the customer value. But how much it is in waiting, how many queues we have, how many handoffs we have between the teams, it's not really visible at organizations. And so making it visible is really, really helpful. Also thinking about, often when I work with organization, I talk to team A may think that, yes, we are doing a lot of things, we are improving how we work, and then we get everything done in 2 weeks. So then I talk to team B, they tell me the same thing. So the next question is that are we saying that a customer gets a value in every 4 weeks? And the answer is often, no, it's not the case. So do we know how long it actually takes? Do we know how many handoffs, how many different teams are involved? It's not clear. So it is a positive step change to actually creating that visibility and start having the conversation. How do we improve the collaboration? How do we improve the knowledge and the information flow between these teams? So that would be one pattern around moving from information learning silos to optimizing for learning. And this optimization can be happening within teams. So in role-based silos, how do we start working together? How do we improve collaboration? How do we break specialization within individual teams? But also really important, the recognition that often or predominantly, it's not one single team who's taking what is the demand or what's the idea or what is the request or anything, how it comes as a part of what we need to create and create as one single team. It's many teams, so it's a team of teams. So I think the really important, or maybe the most important thing, is to learn how we work together, not just within one single team, but how do we work together as team of teams to create the value to the customer. And that in itself boils down to how do we actually create a better information flow, how do we create a better learning, how do we move towards a team level learning and a team of teams level learning. So that's one anti-pattern and pattern pair I wanted to share. The next thing is, that's another fun, so please read it. I'm not going to read it for you. A famous book, really famous book. So what happens is that in organizations, the information are in different bubbles across the organization. The larger the organization gets, the less we know about the different things that are happening in different parts of the organization. When I worked in a large organization in the center of enablement, and we knew that in order innovation or especially disruptive innovation, like for example change and culture change in an organization, how it works, we knew that one of the big enablers is communication. So we need to communicate what works well. So in order to do that, we need to know where great things are happening in parts of the organization. As part of the enablement team, we knew that we had a network, so we knew people, we knew teams, and so we worked with them. But it proved to be really, really hard to actually work with the team and then have a write-up and then going through iterations of that write-up and actually putting it into a newsletter. So we discovered that it's not an easy thing to do. And so there are a lot of things which are not really great about these kind of bubbles. So one of the things is that it is actually the knowledge remains in the bubble and it's often not getting out there and having in a newsletter or sharing it with other teams. So actually the team keeps it to themselves. It's based on a silo mentality. And just because of the focus and the priorities. So information discovery is limited because we have limited reach, so we don't know where great things are happening, especially the organization gets larger, maybe there are different departments, different business units, they don't really talk to each other. And so when people are leaving, then there is very poor retention of knowledge. And because of that, there are lots of inefficiencies or duplicative work. So these are undesired effects. And the way we can actually beat that, the way we can turn it around is that we increase connectivity. So this picture I just took just recently, a couple of days back in walking in London, and I just discovered this mural, part of London where there are lots of street art sceneries in North London, in Shoreditch. And it's great. So this, when I looked it up, what this is actually a art made by 16 top street artists in the UK. And so it's a big manifestation that having collaboration actually helps us create something which we can't do individually. But it's also resonated with me really well because this translates very well into the organizational context. So if we have disconnected information learning bubbles, then we need better connectivity. So how do we achieve better connectivity? How do we connect those disconnected learning and information bubbles? So a couple of things I would share with you, which in my experience are working really well. So one of them is quite obvious, which is having things like, for example, book club, having things like where people come together, they read something, they share with each other, that creates a community, that creates buzz. I had a great example of one of the organization where one person actually started that. They started watching TED Talks in the morning. This is how they started watching TED Talks. And this TED Talks, then it's increased the number of people started watching. Maybe it's 5 people, then 10 people, then 15 people. And then they started organizing book clubs. So there was a short list of books. They started reading them, and then they started discussing the books. So it's a book club is a great learning option forum. The other thing I have there, which is interesting, it's called colleague to colleague. So Google does that. It's called the G2G, which is Googler to Googler. So this is about they realize that how much better it is actually when colleagues sharing information and learnings with other colleagues. It's actually teaching, mentoring, running training, but short webinars on demand. So this is a colleague to colleague. We established this at large organization. It works really well because on demand, anybody could become a trainer or a teacher or a mentor or something like that. So it's good for the people, good for the individuals. So there is intrinsic motivation, but also it's good for the colleagues because that person is there. So after the webinar, they can connect and they can learn from each other. And it could be a whole team is doing a presentation, how they improve the outcomes or how they improve ways of working. Could be individual colleagues in any topics. And based on demand, based on the market, actually, there's going to be a repeat of the same session, or maybe it's going to die out because maybe there is no interest. So that's another great thing. Center of enablement. So center of enablement, a small team with coaches, change agents, helping the organization to surface impediments, to nurture culture, to actually help the organization with the culture change. That's another one. Communities of practice. I'm sure you've seen it and working hopefully successfully. So this is which is based on invitation. So it's again, it's the keyword is not inflicting something on an organization, but based on invitation. So there is a common topic of interest, and then people are joining and they co-sharing and working together and creating something which is good for them and good for the organization. So I was head of or global chair, not head of, sorry, global chair, for example, Agile Community of Practice at Barclays with 2,500 members. And we had different chapters in different regions. So there was local mobilization. It was not a global, but local mobilization. And we had things like, which are gonna come also like conferences, but also knowledge sharing. We established colleague to colleague sessions and other things. So it worked really well, but we had a lot of different type of communities and also communities of communities. So we had COPs of COPs. So actually bringing it all together and sharing and remove duplicates and so on. So actually making it more structured, more formal with established outcomes, roadmap and so on. So not like a let's just meet for the sake of meeting, but actually having a strategy around it. Internal mobility, that's awesome. I've seen it working where there is a rotation. So actually colleagues have the ability to move to other teams and work with other teams for a certain time. So it's maybe you're moving to another team and you work there for 2 weeks. So it's an accelerated upskilling and sharing. I've seen this with a media company, which I've seen working really well. I'm going to talk about this a lot more because this is a key enabler looking into transparency. We looked at the transparency angle, so having visibility, but also we need to unlock measurability and unlocking measurability for learning, not unlocking measurability to use it as a stick and to use it to weaponize, but using it for continuous improvements and learning. Conferences, unconferences. So unconferences, which you mentioned, link coffee you have, but maybe open space. Again, the key thing is invitation. So based on invitation, people come together. Whoever comes, the right people, whatever happens is the right thing what happened. And so that it's energizing, there is a lot of intrinsic motivation, and you co-create something. So actually you keep learning from each other and you co-create new knowledge. And then conferences. So conferences, I've seen less that companies are actually doing an organization, but this is also a key enabler. So running internal conferences, because we like to go to external conferences and listening to external speakers, but inward looking, internal talents, and also leadership. So having the senior leadership asking them that, could you please come on stage and talk about ways of working with your words? So this is attracting a lot of people then, and also it creates a lot of internal buzz around that. Yes, ways of working is so important. It's important for the firm, and then we can all together work on it to make it better. So I would definitely recommend thinking about running conferences internally, mostly internal speakers with teams and sharing knowledge, but also inviting maybe some external speakers as well. But inward looking, I think it's key. Internal talent, this is us, this is the organization. How do we do this together? So feeling that sense of accountability and autonomy that we can make it better together. And then this is the last one. It's really important that we had great success as an enabler in terms of running awards. So when I mentioned that it is proved to be really hard to collecting success stories from different teams and also putting them into a newsletter, and maybe you can gather a handful of those. So instead of, it's a behavior pattern thing, which is then, can we ask actually the organization and teams to nominate themselves, to nominate teams around how much they have improved outcomes, ways of working and customer outcomes, better value student safer outcomes, how much they have improved in the last 12 months, regardless of the nature of the work, so whether it's IT or non-IT. So we had like internal audit winning an award. And so you can combine and connect that with a conference, and so that in a conference, in a big conference, that you can give awards. Maybe it's a top senior leader with somebody from the industry handing over awards, and it makes this team so proud of themselves, and so it's really awesome. And my experience is that although we thought when we first was running it, we thought that gonna be minimum nomination, maybe gonna be 1 or 2 max, and we got like 84 teams nominated with really great data also, and anecdotes around how they improved. And so then it was a great thing of going through that, having panel discussion, inviting to the panel a diverse team from senior leadership practitioners and so on. And then eventually you come up with some awards, with a lot of awards, and you give to the teams. These teams can also then share afterwards, maybe in a colleague-to-colleague sessions, how it went. You can use it as case studies and share it in newsletters. So you're gonna have a great gold information about awesome things are happening in the organization, which gives a really positive boost to everybody, and greater connection and learning from each other. So this one is for moving from those bubbles into connectivity and improve connectivity. That would be another pair. And so let's dive into a bigger topic, which is around data. So when it is around, yes, we have visibility, but how do we unlock visibility? How do we unlock measurability? And this is non-trivial, because in order to do that, first of all, we need to connect with where the work is. So in which tooling or in non-tooling, so where actually we can see that, and how can we actually measure it. So although in the industry we are saying that tooling is not important, and the mindset what is important, I fully agree with that. However, if you think about tooling is experience, and experience for the colleagues. So I come into work and I need to work with n number of different toolings. Probably I'm not going to be happy about that. So as soon as if the happier bit is definitely connected to, am I happy with the environment and the things I need to use in my daily life at an organization? So tooling is one of the things I constantly need to work with. So tooling ecosystem and improving the tooling ecosystem, and so improving colleagues' experience with that, whether it's our internal product or whether it's a work management tool, it's all something when many people at organizations are using, and so it's experience. And also as a side effect, if we treat it as an ecosystem and try to improve it, like a product with customers, internal customers as colleagues, then as a positive side effect, we're going to get connected data sets. So if we get connected data sets, then we unlock measurability around end-to-end creation of value. And so that's one point. And then the other point is really important point is that this should, from the very beginning, if you go down to the journey of creating something which is self-serve and it's a data set which can be used for continuous learning, it also could be used then for weaponizing and could be used for as a stick and inflicting and weaponizing. So coaching the leadership in the organization, the data is so important for us to use for continuous improvement at team level, at team of teams level, and not to create something like a watermelon matrix, which is like a rec status that make me green. So it's green in the outside, but red in the inside type of matrix. That's not the purpose. The purpose is actually making something self-serve so that I have autonomy and I have data, I can self-serve the data and I can use it for continuous improvements. That's awesome because that's learning. That's again, moving us towards a learning organization. Without data is really, really hard because otherwise I only get a gut feel that things are not going well or things are not happening. Do we have data to have some leading indicators around that? So it's the self-serve nature that's important. Also, it's important for invitation. So taking the organization with us. It's not the DORA metrics or industry metrics that we need to inflict that you need to measure this or you need to measure that, like, for example, lead time and other things. And this is the industry measure. But it's like, how do you bring the organization on that journey? Because we are talking about mindset. Data mindset is really, really hard. We are not used to using data, or maybe we are using data what we were asked to report on, but using data for continuously improving what we have is rare. So taking the organization with us in terms of start where you are with empathy. If these are the things you're currently measuring, great, but then would you value measuring things like which would have a information about the outcomes and how we are improving outcomes? So that's a journey. So this is what we went on, and this is a real case study in Nationwide Building Society, my most recent experience in this, where I led the creation of a self-serve dashboard. So there's a video on YouTube. We presented that at meetups where, so what you see here, if you're familiar with the diffusion of innovation curve with Everett Rogers, he studied that first the innovators and the early adopters taking a change, and then after that it goes to the early and late maturity, and then later the laggards, call them laggards, but more like the skeptics or who don't wanna change. So we really started this journey with the early adopters and innovators, again based on invitation. This is a self-serve dashboard. Are you interested? How would you use it? Why would you use it? Why is it beneficial? And we asked them to come along to our show and tell. So show and tell was a key, regular show and tell. So instead of me talking about industry measures, if you could talk about why are you using it, why does it have a benefit for you, what have you changed based on using this data, how are you using it, and so on. So actually, creating that whatever at Rogers called it the social proof or the story around this. It's really similar with these awards, but small stories around that. This is how I use it. It created a much bigger attraction, and so then people were like, "Oh, great! I want to use the same thing. Can I use it?" And so on and so on. So copying each other's things, how they use data. Besides that, training and coaching on demand. So we went on a journey and reached more than 1,300 colleagues at all levels using based on invitation for continuously improving outcomes. So this is the things we can get. So for example, it's just one example around flow because we talked about visibility. So this would show that on average, like team A, team B, team C, how long it takes within that context to moving from starting the work and then getting the work done. So moving from maybe in progress to done on that board versus how long actually it really takes end to end, and then showing the big gap between those that maybe that's just one snapshot and one parts of the organization that there is a big gap. And so there could be different reasons for that, but that's part of the context, which could be different, limited time slots to doing a release. Maybe we do a lot of batching up and then it's one big bang, or maybe it's a lot of dependencies on other teams like we've seen in the picture. It could be various different stories. The important thing is that unlocking this measurability could be used as an eye-opening thing that, yes, okay, so that it takes much longer than what we thought. So how do we collaborate as team of teams to actually improve the value creation to the customer time, the value creation times? Really important. I mentioned the leadership at all levels to creating psychological safety, because again, this needs experimentation. This needs being able to freely using data so that we can learn. There needs to be a level of safety provided so that this data is not going to be used as a stick or a rec status. So it is about, again, data connected data set. It's about some measurements. It's about insights. It's about self-serve nature, and it's about psychological safety. So moving from a weaponized metrics to measures for learning. So these were three main areas, and I will go much deeper on this in various trainings and workshops. Just wanted to flash if you have an interest. And then that's my end of the presentation. So, and I open up for questions. Hopefully it was interesting.
Thank you very much, Zsolt. I think Diana will share the Slido. And there are a few questions, so I'll take just the first one from the Slido that I can see, and this one is from Rastio. So let me just read it. You touched upon the organizational structure in the beginning. What's your take on the organizational structure and optimizing it for useful patterns instead of anti-patterns?
Thank you. So great questions, and I would suggest I will start small. So in terms of creating and understanding the end-to-end value creation, not just the end-to-end value creation, but also how work is connected to strategy. I didn't have a slide on that, but it's not just the horizontal visibility what's important, but it's also equally important how how much alignment teams have to the strategy. So team level work, how the team level work is connected to the higher level outcomes, because that actually creates the focus, that creates the learning, and that creates actually the connectedness of the portfolio and the team level work. So having both visibility, I think, would be a starting point, I would suggest, instead of going into let's create a new target operating model. understanding, start where we are, understanding how we work, understanding the handoffs, and understanding how much alignment and connectedness we have. In that video, which I shared, our nationwide case study video, there is a section there which talks about the golden thread. So we started establishing that and measuring how much alignment we have in the organization. And it started with a low alignment, which started, enabled the conversation. If we are working on this as a team, and it's not aligned to a high level outcome, why is it not aligned? Is it a legit work? Is it priority? Or we shouldn't be working on this? Maybe should be working on something else. Equally, if at the portfolio level, we thought that something is in progress and some teams are working on it, that alignment, visibility, measurement showed us that actually nothing is happening. So creating that alignment and improving that alignment is another thing to understanding how we work, how we organize at the moment, how we optimize, how we organize for outcomes. If we do that, then those conversations where, okay, what's our product, what's our service, and can we organize more around value creation constructs or in the industry value streams? That's a next valuable conversation to have. But even without having reorganization in thinking that let's just do reorganization, if at the team level and the individual level, we can start thinking of how can we, do I know how value is created? And if I know that, how can we collaborate more? How can we increase the collaboration and learning from each other? Doesn't require a new target, a new operating model. Actually, we can start improving without having to changing the organization. Is that answering your question?
Rastya, awesome. Thank you. Next one. This is a good one. Evergreen, as we would say. What's your take on the future of Agile, considering digital transformation and remote work?
So I think it's the key question is not Agile or doing anything for the sake of Agile. I think in any context the question is, do we understand the pain points? Do we understand our starting point? Do we understand what are the outcomes that we want to achieve? And if we do, then how do we improve that? How do we improve those outcomes, and how do we achieve those improved outcomes? And then based on that, and based on what the context is and the type of work and the situation, there are going to be different approaches, and there are lots of different practices and patterns around that we can start experimenting with and improving it. So I think the future is to looking into more focus on the outcomes, more customer centricity, and more sharing of how we work within the organization with each other. So actually learning organization is definitely a pattern which I see it still needs a lot of thinking and a lot of pattern to be surfaced. How do we move towards that? Is that answering your question?
I hope so. The anonymous can confirm. So thank you. Thank you for answering that one. Next one. What is your experience in engaging mid-management into Agile transformation?
Yeah, so if it's about, let's say, an Agile transformation, then there's a lot of negative reaction to it. There is maybe at the beginning there is an excitement, and often if it's coming from top senior leadership, let's just do an Agile transformation. Maybe people, not just middle management, but others gonna say that let's just embrace it, and then it's gonna last for I don't know how long, and then we're gonna move on, and maybe there's gonna be another initiative later on, or maybe another external third party comes in and say something that let's just do this because it worked for other organizations. So I understand that. I understand, and I've seen it. I've seen a lot that it happens, and for the same reason that it is an inflict. It is about doing it for the sake of doing it. If it happens, though, I would suggest that always try to flip the coin to the positive. Always try to use it as a positive thing. So if a third party or for any reason it is like, okay, let's just do this, and I'm not going to name anything of that sort, but let's just do this because I think it's going to work, without actually understanding the outcomes you are looking for. Every single of those methods, you're going to find some positive things which can be turned into the positive thinking or behavior change. So looking into, is it helping us, and keep asking the question, is it helping? Is this moving us towards those better outcomes that we want to achieve? And if the answer is yes, we're happy. And always that's the real question. Are we happy about this? Because I showed numbers, and maybe somebody is saying that we have a 30-day, 40-day gap between local context versus end-to-end. Are we happy about that? If the answer is yes, we are happy, then you're happy. Then why would you change that? Often the answer is no, we are not happy. If we are not happy, then what are the pain points and how do we want to improve that? Are we having happy customers? Are we creating the value? Are we happy about the quality that we are creating? Are we happy as people? Are we happier? About the regulations, the governance, risk and control? Are we happy of what we produce is actually safe? And we are not cutting corners? Are we happy with the pace? If the answers are yes, then great. So then we're gonna ask that team or teams that could you please share with the rest of the organization, how do you do that? Because you're happy and you're improving outcomes. Awesome. We want to learn from you. So that is my answer, and I understand the frustration when it is really inflicted, and this is not what's happening, that we are focusing on outcomes.
Awesome, thank you. Next one, how can teams practically incorporate the BVSSH principle into their daily operations? Maybe you can just touch based on what the abbreviation means. Not everybody might be aware of that.
Yeah, so it's better value soonest if happier, and described as previously as if from measurement point of view, better is around the quality. So the quality we create to the customers, the value we create to customers, is it quality? So if it's an IT, that could be something like, do we have, our incidents are decreasing, our resilience is improving, and so on. In terms of the value, it is unique because that's why you're in business. So it is about what is the value actually we create to the customer, and so that value gonna have some leading and lagging measures. So leading would be how the customer is engaging. Is it more the customer is more engaging, then it's a positive, or the customer is less engaging. So measuring those as leading and lagging, what is actually the impact of that? So it's the outcome and the impact. And then the sooner is all about the flow. So it's what we talked about. It's all about how long it actually takes to create value. And the safer is that it's not just speed, but speed and control. So if you work in a regulated industry, the governance, risk and compliance is a really important thing. So when you want to release something into production, if it's IT, then, for example, IT security, data privacy, fraud, compliance, they're going to have a say in it, and they're going to say that you can't do that because you haven't mitigated this particular risk. So they can send you back to the drawing board. So it could be a huge amount of remediation work that you need to do. So how do you actually lean that relationship? How do you improve the engagement? How do you become safer in terms of those? And then happier, really importantly, that how do we feel as colleagues, and then also customers being happy. And we have also citizens and climate, so it's purposeful. So in terms of again, practices, so focusing on focusing on outcomes, focusing on customers at every level is really important. Within differentiate, but also we talked about this alignment in terms of that, do I really understand the part of the bigger picture I'm in? So not just locally improving, but do we have alignment, because that also gonna create the focus and create priority at every level. There are lots of other things, but probably would take a lot of time to go through.
All right. Yeah, I would love to ask one question personally there, but I'll not be jumping in there. Maybe at the end if we have time. So this one, how do you restart a transformation? Any good tips at a point where there is a significant agile fatigue?
Yeah, again, I've seen it. So there are, that happens that this is the third, this is the fourth, transformation we have with different measure, different, sometimes KPI goals. And now it's an all different structure even, it's an all different methodology even. So then yes, so I understand that there could be a fatigue, and again, the learning organization and the practices around that could provide a lot of important forums that people can connect it and talk about how would we actually improve our ways of working. So we talked about community of practice. We talked about, for example, internal conferences. We talked about leadership and having early adopters also from the leadership point of view who would like to do something differently. We talked about data, so we talked about sharing a lot. So things like where anything which you can pivot into learning and also understanding what are the outcomes. So if you don't have, that goes back to, I think that goes back to the sphere of control and sphere of influence, right? How much control, how much influence we have. If we play that game of how much control, how much influence we have, we always realize that actually we have more than what we think we have. So that's another good thing to try. And so then what in our sphere of influence we can do to improve and moving towards a learning organization, and using actually, if there is another method or something, using it for positive in terms of that, how can we turn it around to make it as a positive behavior change? So it's a lot of focus on outcome, starting the question instead of saying that agile, capital A, capital T, instead of, what are the outcomes we want to improve, and so how do we improve it together? So what are the experiments, or what are the things that we can do to improve it together? So the question is, people say the leadership position saying that, oh, they don't not again, then how can we help? So instead of how can I make you agile, if you're a coach, that's not a good question. How can I help? What are the outcomes you are looking to improve?
Thank you. 2 more questions. Yeah, I think we can make it. How does an organization measure the effectiveness of BVSSH approach?
So there are lots of, again, the case study I would suggest to watch, where we go to a lot of different angles of this, but exactly that. So have we improved outcomes? Are we happier? Are the customer happier? Are we creating more value or better value for our customers? The quality is improving. Are we really moving towards a learning organization? So those are the things I would measure in terms of organization agility. That's what's important. So how do we improve that? So if we have a dashboard, which self-serve dashboard I talked about, some of these measures gonna become visible in terms of what is the trend. So instead of absolutes, to measure the trends in terms of, are these dimensions are improving? Are we getting value sooner to the customer. If we can measure that, we need to unlock measurability. If we can measure that, we can see the trend. Are we improving quality? Again, that's many organizations actually are reporting on quality measures. So is that improving? Are we happier? So when we do the colleague surveys and on other measures around retention and so on, our people are saying this is a great place to work. What are our customers saying about our value we create? So those things are a lot of measurements that we can measure, but also there is a lot of unlocking measurability which needs to happen.
All right. Additional question to this, just one. You might have mentioned it. Maybe I just didn't catch it. But if people want to check some of these studies that you're referring to, where would you point them?
So again, there are lots of things in the book, as you mentioned at the beginning, but also that's one. Also, if you go to the website, there are lots of blogs around this. In the blogs section, and then there is the EMEA. Sorry, not the EMEA. So there is the meetup, the Sooner Safer Happier meetup, which we have chapters. There is a EMEA, UK EMEA meetup for this region, but also we have Pacific and also Americas, and there exactly what's happening. So sharing case studies, and then there is a YouTube channel. On that YouTube channel, we always post those videos.
Super. All right, last question that I see in Slido: how to pop a bubble when employees are in fear of headcount reductions and experience knowledge is their ticket to stay.
Say it again. Knowledge is there to what?
Like a ticket to stay. Like that's why.
Yeah, I see. So
it's like makes them valuable.
More like job security and
yep.
And it's really hard. I mean, and that's part of what we talked about the first time, the pattern around that. If the incentivization is based on silo work, then there is things like mastery. I keep the knowledge to myself. What I would suggest, again, just for the diffusion of innovation, that, and I believe in this, that there are innovators and early adopters at every organization. So, and you can find innovators and early adopters at every level within the organization. So we talked about the community of practice and having the sponsor, maybe in a leadership position, in a senior leadership position that has influence on top senior leadership. So if you have the sponsor for the community of practice, it's really important to have a sponsor. So if you have a sponsor, then when you start surfacing impediments, then that's gotta be really visible that actually it creates value to the organization. And so that's just one way to show that actually the co-creation of knowledge can bring value to the organization, which could be incentivized and better instead of silo incentivization and not team-based. So I guess I would start with the early adopters and innovators and have a success story, including senior leadership, that it is actually working for me, it is working differently, because then that senior leader gonna become a change agent. And so that senior leader peer-to-peer conversations are really helpful. What maybe a coach, a team level coach cannot step in because their leader is gonna say that you don't have authority, you're not in my shoes, and so on. But if that person as an early adopter innovator can have that conversation and share some of the success patterns in that space.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think that was the last one. Looking at the time, we just made it right on time. So Zsolt, I think it's time to say thank you very, very much for the time you've spent with us and for the wisdom that you've shared. Before we say goodbye, if people want to reach out to you for whatever reason, is there any place where they can find you, or where would you point them?
Yeah, definitely. So I would encourage you also, and again, thank you for inviting me, but also from the sense of sharing and co-sharing. So please connect through the Students of Happy Meetup, or please just connect me through LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have a chat.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much, Zsolt. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.
I hope you had a great evening, and stay tuned. We have some plans for next event in Agile Bratislava, so make sure to follow the meetup group, and we will be in touch. So thank you very much again. Have a great rest of the day, and see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.